Next question. I don't see the Warriors roster being good enough to win 2 or more series in the West. The Warriors had often been interested in Anthony Davis over the years since KD left the Warriors. From the salaries, AD for Butler or AD for Green and Kuminga plus any non-minimum player, would you trade for AD? Love your show, Jason. Thank you so much for supporting the show. So here's the thing. In principle, I love the idea of Anthony Davis playing for the Warriors. You don't have to overthink that. It's just really fun to imagine like a real athletic, switchable rim protector in Golden State's defensive system. I think offense, it's a little more clunky. AD is not the best read and react player that I've ever watched at the center position. He can be a little slow to interpret what the defense is doing, and he can struggle with double teams and guys that come swarming from his backside when he's not looking. There's also like a opportunity kind of element here where it's like, what if Anthony Davis could be got for cheap? But really, it falls apart for two reasons for me. One, Anthony Davis has consistently in his career shown up in camp out of shape, which has led to him putting a ton of mileage on his body early in the season when he's trying to drop weight. And then he inevitably gets hurt because he's not in playing shape when he's trying to play. And then he comes into camp this year bigger than he's ever been. There's another photo floating around the other day of him looking kind of big. Anthony Davis is in my opinion, the textbook example of a guy that kind of exacerbates his own injury issues because of his consistent problem with showing into camp overweight. And his reasoning is like, well, I drop weight during the season. I need to come in heavy so that I can drop weight to the right playing weight. But whatever benefit he's getting from like being at the right playing weight later on in the season, he's losing in the form of his body just getting beat to hell from him carrying all this extra weight in a league that is heavily up and down in transition, and that's asking him to cover a lot of ground in rotation as a big that can be mobile on the perimeter. And so I don't think it's a trade-off that has worked for AD. And so there's a huge injury risk for AD, who's once again injured again. And then the second piece of it is with the salaries, like you trade Jimmy Butler for AD, you're plugging one hole and creating another. Jimmy Butler's your secondary shot creator, right? And do I think Anthony Davis, when he's healthy, is a better player than Jimmy Butler? Probably, but not by enough of a margin to justify that swap when you're creating another hole and Jimmy's demonstrated himself to be more available as of late. And then as soon as you include Draymond Green in the mix, I think you're just so fundamentally altering the way the team plays on offense because of Draymond Green's ability to play in that, high post, like passing fulcrum type of role, hitting back cutters and slipping out of ball screens. And, I was watching the game against the Spurs on Wednesday, and it's just like so apparent when you watch the Warriors how important Draymond is as a passing fulcrum for that offense. And so as soon as you give up Draymond, whatever benefit you get from AD is mitigated to a certain extent, and then you bring the injury issues to the forefront. So it's worth exploring just simply because Anthony Davis could be had for relatively cheap. But as soon as I dug into it a little bit, I didn't really like the move for the Warriors. Next question. Whenever I watch the Warriors defense, I notice that a lot of their defense is predicated on overhelping, which leads to open threes for the other team. What is the thought process of always overhelping? I'm trying to understand whether this is happening due to the lack of size and mobility on the roster, or if it's more of a defensive philosophy that they're sticking to. Definitely a defensive philosophy. This has been a consistent thing throughout the Steve Kerr era. This is a team that swarms, and they do it. There's a couple of different elements to keep in mind here. One, this is an excellent closeout team. Every year that I watch the Warriors, I find them to be one of the best 2 or 3 teams that I watch every year in terms of flying around in rotation and chasing guys off the line. Commitment to being in the paint to help, to swarm, but also getting back out to the perimeter. Now, they can have nights where their closeouts aren't as sharp, and then it looks like they're just leaving a bunch of dudes open, and it can look like a flawed defensive scheme. But ultimately, especially in high leverage moments, clutch situations, the playoffs, whenever they're really locked in for a regular season game, I look at them as a team that can swarm and recover, and I think it's a strong foundation for them defensively. The second piece of it is very much by design, which is this is a team that wants to try to get Steph Curry in chaos as much as possible. They want Steph Curry to be operating without a set defense. So instead of like this guy's locking and trailing, he's grabbing his jersey and he's holding him all over the floor, and every one of the other 4 defenders is keyed in on him so that they can be ready for him as he comes off the screens. They want like offensive rebounds off of corner crashes where he can get open, kind of like the shot that he hit off of the Gary Payton offensive rebound to help close the game against San Antonio, right? Like they want chaos. And one of the best ways to generate chaos for Steph Curry to where he can find openings is in transition. And one of the best ways to get into transition is to force turnovers. And one of the best ways to force turnovers is to swarm in the paint and get deflections as guys are trying to make kickouts. And then even on the kickouts, whenever they miss a three, missed threes usually lead to long rebounds. Long rebounds usually lead to transition opportunities. So even if they give up a certain amount of, wide open catch and three opportunities as a part of that defensive scheme, it is made up for in the long rebounds, the turnovers, and the transition opportunities. This is a Warriors team that is top 10 in forcing turnovers. And I think they get like 20 points a game off of turnovers. It's like a huge part of the way that they score the basketball. So ultimately it's by design. And then whenever they end up in high leverage moments, I never feel like teams are comfortably shooting threes. I feel like they're facing pretty intense closeouts from one of the best closeout teams in the league.